Hi, this is Barry here, and you're very welcome to today's podcast episode from WriteCome.com. And today we're going to have a look at 3 ways to get into the writing zone. Now, as I'm recording this is the 2nd of January 2019, and like a lot of people, you've probably entered the new year with New Year's resolutions and things you want to improve from last year. So in this case, with it being a writing podcast, I assume that you're listening to this because you want to write more content, maybe you want to get better at your fiction writing or whatever it is, but you want to get better at your writing. So that's why I'd put this podcast episode together. Because one of the ways that you can improve your writing and pump out content maybe faster than you have before is to get into the writing zone. You know, in some cases you might find it hard maybe to, you're typing away at the keys and nothing seems to be coming, no ideas are flowing, the story just seems to be just kind of shuddering along. You don't actually get into the flow until maybe you're half an hour in or so, and then all of a sudden then something comes over you where you just suddenly everything seems easier. You know exactly what the characters are saying, or if you're writing a blog post, all of a sudden, once you pass the first paragraph or two, all of a sudden you're into the flow of the article and everything comes easy. Ideas come to you, and you probably have more ideas coming to you than you can actually type it out. And in these cases, you'll find that the easier your writing is, the better it becomes, because you're just kind of setting your I don't know whether it's your inner critic or whether it's something that's holding you back, but you've set it aside for a couple of moments, and all of a sudden you're just kind of writing, through your subconscious, and everything is just flowing through your fingers onto the keyboard. So, to get into the writing zone is, it's a great thing to do on a regular, basis, because it takes the pain out of writing, because it doesn't seem as frustrating, because you're simply just, you're just simply writing for your subconscious, and, you're not thinking about what you're writing, and everything is just easy, and, all those different things. So you probably want to know how you can get into your writing zone. How can you speed up the process and get into it faster than you did before? So that's what we're going to have a look at in this podcast episode. Now, the first thing you could do, and this will probably seem a little bit weird until you actually think about it, is to change what you're wearing. Now, I remember my mother years ago used to talk about a politician in the Irish government who, before he became a politician, he used to have a kind of a 9-to-5 job. He was a blue collar worker, but every evening after he came home from work, he used to take off his work clothes and he used to put on a full suit. So, he wasn't going anywhere, but he used to go around in a suit, in the evening times around the house and all that. And the reason he did that, he said, was because he wanted to picture himself as a politician. He wanted the people to see him out in the street walking around with a suit on him, and not to see him as this 9-to-5 worker, to see him who could be a potential candidate as a politician. And not only was he putting the message out to the people in his area, but he was also, putting the message to himself. He was convinced himself, he was probably visualizing or whatever it was, that he could see himself as a TD, and by changing the clothes and putting on that suit, he kind of put on that kind of, what he felt a politician should be like. And maybe that's something you should try doing, is to change what you're wearing. How do you picture maybe Stephen King sitting down on his laptop? What clothes does he wear? Now, you may have ideas of maybe this writer who's sitting just in his dressing gown or sitting in his pajamas or whatever it is. And, from this image that you have in your head, you can picture him, being a prolific writer. He's just typing away at the keys, but it's the clothes that he's wearing. You may find maybe that, if you look at even like back at Halloween, the kids all dressing up in costumes. You've got kids dressing up as Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, or whatever it is. And you'll find that the kids, when they put on the costume, it changes their manner. They're probably a bit more courageous, they act differently. Maybe a shy child who maybe puts on a Wonder Woman costume is suddenly kind of, full of beans and outspoken and running around, and, it changes themselves. Even if you look at maybe a nurse, or if you look at a policeman, I assume that as soon as they put on that uniform, it changes them. When they strip out of it, they're not the same person as they are when they're in the uniform, because that uniform kind of, it makes them feel a certain way, and the uniform probably makes them, talk a certain way, think a certain way. And it's from putting on this uniform, it's changing their state. So have a look at what way you can change your state with just your clothes. Do you need to dress up formally? Do you need to dress down? have a think about what you picture. Now, I suppose you could Google what Stephen King wears, or your favorite author wears, but what's the point in doing that? Maybe when the picture maybe you have in your mind could be more powerful. Maybe the truth might actually let you down. Maybe he's just sitting in a pair of pants and a t-shirt, and maybe you have this idea that he's sitting in this kind of like a smoking jacket or something like that on him, and it doesn't match up. So think about what you think he that particular author would wear, and dress up like them, and you will find that because you're changing your clothing, it'll change your state, and you'll find that you won't look at yourself as being this kind of author who's having trouble writing away. That it'll help change your mental state, and you probably will find that you'll get into flow faster than you did before. Another thing you could do too is change your surroundings. Like changing your clothing, changing your surroundings can make a big difference. In my own case, like if I went out to maybe a public park with a laptop, I would find it hard to write. I don't know what it is about big open spaces, but for me, the smaller the area that I'm writing in, the better. I find that if I go up to the bedroom, it's not as big as the kitchen, and if I close all the curtains over, if I put myself in the corner of the room and work in the very, very corner of the room, in the case where I found some of my best writing and some of the things I could get the fastest, I could into flow faster, was we used to have, one of the kids had one of those kind of banana shaped, those gaming chairs that sit on the floor. And what I would do is I would drag that banana chair over to the corner of the room, and I would sit in it, I would put my headphones in, and I would close the curtains and lock the door or whatever. And for me, bringing kind of the world and making it smaller, and me being in a kind of small surroundings was far better for me than being out in the public park. As I said, I don't know what it is, I don't know why it does that way, but for me to write, I need to get, it's probably hard to explain, but to get internally, or to close the world off and make the world as small as possible, works really, really well for me. So have a look at changing your surroundings. Maybe you sitting in front of that big window with the the whole landscape in front of you, the area maybe isn't doing you any good. Maybe it would be better maybe just pulling the blinds, maybe turn your desk around, or finding somewhere maybe that maybe even writing in the back of the car. Like there was sometimes when I was traveling around in the car, I would, the kids and my wife would go away off for a wee while, and I would sit in the back seat of the car and I would have the laptop, and I found writing in the car was very good too, because it was a smaller space for me, and I could kind of close everything down and concentrate on my writing that way. So play around with all the different ideas. If you find maybe a coffee shop helps, you could try that then too. Or if you feel maybe you don't want to be distracted by other customers, you can go to a website called Coffidity. You'll probably have to Google that, but what you can do is it will give you all different sound effects that you can play in the background of your laptop, whether it's a coffee shop or whether it's a an open fire crackling in the fireplace, or whatever it is that's getting you in the zone. So think about how you can change your surroundings, play around with all those different things, and keep a record of your word count, and how what made a difference to you, what helped you write better, or whatever it is, and find what works for you. Another thing you could then do is that you can, prime the writing pump. In most cases, people will say to you, well, do some random writing maybe for 10 minutes and just write for everything that comes off your mind. Whatever thoughts comes in, write them in as they come in. And by doing so, you're kind of switching off the inner critic and you're getting the flow, and eventually you'll reach a point where, your thoughts are going straight to your hand. You're not actually thinking about it. And that is the point where you switch over to your writing. And you will find then that you can, you're in the flow at that stage then, and then your writing can take over. But what I found was, from doing that, by doing that, you're supposed to kind of relax and not think about what you're writing. But as I was actually writing out these words, which was maybe some crazy thoughts like, why am I writing this sentence? And I would be typing that, why am I writing this sentence? I felt a little bit stupid, and I felt, well, what if somebody comes back and reads back through the stuff that I'm writing down here, all these ramblings and ravings, and they'll probably think I'm a madman, and all that thing was at the back of my mind. So I wasn't actually 100% relaxed. I wasn't 100% allowing myself to go, because I was paranoid, and people finding what I was writing down, and just the fact that I was just writing down random thoughts on a page, it didn't seem to work for me. So what you could do in that case, and which I had done a couple of times, was to prime the writing pump, is to, rather than starting off at a blank page, go get a page from your favorite book or a passage from your favorite author, and put it in front of you and type it out word for word. And because you have something to work with, you're not actually working with a blank slate, and you're working with from good material. And you will find that after a period of time, once you're starting to type that out, your head will get into a kind of writing state, because you'll take on the what the author was doing in that piece, and you will find that as well too, it will actually improve your writing. Because one of the best ways you can improve writing is to go and get a good piece of writing and write it out by hand, letter by letter, every punctuation mark or whatever's on the page, and you will find it'll improve your writing. Not only will it slows you down because you have to pay attention to the words, but you're going to notice sentence structure, you're going to notice word choice, you're going to notice punctuation, you're going to notice grammar, and all those different things. And because you're working from a good piece of content, you're not have to going to worry about spelling mistakes or anything, because the piece has already been edited and proofread by whatever publishing company that put it out. And so you're not actually working from a blank page. So if you wanted to take a passage and write from it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, you'll find that your mind, your state of mind will go from, what am I going to write about, to, I'm enjoying this writing, and then you will find ideas coming to yourself. And then at that stage, then you can flip over to your own writing then and take off. So you're not actually starting from zero, you're starting from a higher point, and then you can go over to your own writing. It'd probably make a bit more sense if you tried it out rather than me just explaining it in this podcast here. If you do the practical part of it, you'll probably notice that, by having something that you're not starting from a blank page, and it'll help you, get into the writing flow. So those are three things that you can try out today to help you, get in your writing flow. Have a look at the clothing that you're wearing, pay attention to your surroundings, and, prime the writing pump by starting off with somebody else's content before you actually get in to start writing your own work. So as always, if you've enjoyed this podcast episode, I would really appreciate it if you would pass this episode on to somebody else. You'll probably find some social media buttons nearby. If you could just click one or two of them and share the content, I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, thanks for sharing your time with me again today. And if you'd like to know more about me, or if you'd like to know more about the products I have or the posts, if you just want to come over to WriteCome.com, that's WriteCome.com, and I'll be glad to see you over there. Take care. Bye-bye.